the loss was so palpable in the room that my husband is now sobbing as we're
Oh,
watching this, right? And she lets out this sound, and it's so crazy because I heard that sound because I made that sound.
yeah.
Um, so she lays down with her deceased cub and the rest of her babies, and she stays there for a little while. But then after a while, she and the surviving cubs have to get up and they have to continue on.
Yes.
And that's where I got the biggest lesson in life. Animals survive on instinct, and their entire world is around survival. And so I said, Krystal, you have got to survive this.
Yeah.
You still have living cubs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Heal with Beth Jones. That's me, your host. My mission is to bring the power of healing to trauma and abuse survivors. That's why every guest on this show will bring you an amazing story of healing in action. So come on, everyone, let's heal. Welcome to another episode of Let's Heal. I'm Beth, your host and healing mentor. We often think that once we've survived early trauma, rebuilt our lives, and reached a place of peace and joy, that we're somehow protected from life's cruelest blows. We fought our battles, and now resilience is our finish line. Once we've crossed it, we're safe. But what if the goal was never learning to live with the pain, but learning to live with the loss, so that you can fight for a life that's worth living? On today's episode, you're going to meet Krystal Gonzalez, a woman who uses her pain every day to fight for the life she has built. Krystal grew up navigating her mother's drug addiction, homelessness, and raising herself and her siblings. Then she built something beautiful for herself, a family, a home, and a life full of love. But on a regular summer night, a 1 a.m. phone call shattered her world. Her gentle, college-bound 18-year-old daughter, Aliyah, a girl who ran toward her mother, not away from her, had been shot and killed at a neighborhood block party in what would become the largest mass shooting in Baltimore's history. Krystal barreled through a crime scene to get to her beautiful daughter. And then, this is where Krystal's story became something far greater than survival. She made a choice not to let this swallow her family whole, and it could have. She and her husband each lost Aliyah in a different way. Everyone in her family grieved differently, and Krystal fought hard to keep her family together. From that fight, she became a fierce advocate for the systemic change that could spare another mother from her nightmare. In Krystal's own words, pain is a hell of an activator. What she teaches us is that the painful seasons in our lives aren't just the things we endure, they are the training ground for a purpose we can't yet see. Krystal Gonzalez, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I am great. I'm feeling good. I'm excited for the day and all that it has to bring. So I'm feeling wonderful. How about you?
Wonderful. I'm great. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. It's a beautiful day today and I am enjoying it fully. So, yeah, really
Wonderful.
good.
That's
Will you, yeah. Will you please take a few moments to introduce yourself to our listeners and let them know who Krystal Gonzalez is today?
Hello, everyone. First of all, Beth, thank you for having me on today. My name is Krystal Gonzalez. I'm a wife. I'm a mom of four beautiful children. I am a fierce protector of all that I love and care for. So I think I've gotten into some pretty interesting things that have led me to some surprising outcomes in life, things that I couldn't ever imagine for myself. And so I'm just here helping, healing a lot of broken hearts. I say this all the time. I deal with a lot of broken hearts, and I have no idea that God would trust me with such a big task. But that's a little about me, who I am.
Yes, indeed. You do a lot of work to heal broken hearts and heavily broken. And we are going to talk about what that means, what your experience is. And you and I connected on TikTok because I saw some of the videos that you have out there where you're doing the advocacy work that you do now, which we will talk more about. And I was so inspired by the work that you're doing to heal broken hearts. So I am delighted to have you here today. And you are perfect to be on a show that's titled Let's Heal, because that's what you do, and you help others to do it as well.
Yes, yes. I'm so honored that that we our paths have crossed, right? Because we never know the work that we're doing, who it's going to affect, and whose journey is going to come across, and we put things out there with our whole hearts, right?
Mm.
And so I'm very honored that our paths cross because we are on a journey to help heal, healing ourselves because it's an ing, right? So it's continuous, but bringing along people along with us on a journey to help them and help inspire them. That's really what it's all about.
Yes, and I love that you clarified that it's the ing on the backside of healing, because we always are. That's why I titled the show Let's Heal, because it's something that we're always doing. There's never an end to it. And that's just part of the human experience. But some of us have had some real pain in our lives. So why don't I give it back to you to take a few minutes to talk about that part of your life and what you've experienced. Share whatever it is that's on your heart to share with the audience, and then we're going to go on to the healing journey.
Sure, sure, sure. So growing, and I don't want to take a whole lot of time with some background things, but I think it's important to mention because when people see me today, they're like, "Oh, how does she do it? Where does it come from?"
Mm,
Well, a lot of it has to do with my upbringing, right? I did not have um, an easy life, and I don't think anybody really does.
mm,
But from the very beginning, I knew that some of the conditions I was living in was just not right. I grew up with a mother who was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and my father was not involved in my life at all. And so I pretty much I ended up raising myself. I'm the oldest of five, and I raised my brothers and sisters because of my mother's disease. She would be out searching for her next fix, and I say disease because we know there's a stronghold there, right? That completely can take over your life, and so. I, at a very early age, had developed this maturity, this responsibility, because I knew that if anyone was to know what was happening at home, they would take and separate me from my siblings. And so I was always a mother before I became a mother to my natural children. Those were my first babies. And so I also found refuge from home with school and doing all the sports and activities and things like that because that was my escape and my release from being
mhm.
a quote unquote young adult to actually being a kid and able to enjoy some things. So I've experienced a ton of misfortune in my young adulthood, and as I always took things like this, I've experienced homelessness. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I have history with being out and not having um, basic needs. I had to fend for myself and try to find ways. So I look for government assistance and ways and areas to help me survive, right? I remember so many times where I'm like, God, how did I get here? Like, I'm a good person. I don't know how I got here. And, I talk about the drug addiction and the fatherless home, and then I talk about the homelessness, but there was also about domestic violence that I had
Mm.
to deal with and overcome. But I'm one of those people who, oh, you're not just going to put your hands on me, right? So that ended very quickly, very
Yeah,
quickly. But that also was a part of my journey and my experience of knowing what it is that I will not tolerate, will
sure,
not stand for.
sure.
And so most people now are being introduced to me because July 2nd of 2023, if you don't mind, can I share a
Yes,
little
please.
story? Yeah.
Yes, and I didn't want to interrupt you, and I want you to definitely share, but I just, because what you're about to share with with the listeners and with me, what we're going to talk about is jaw dropping on the backside of what you've already experienced and overcome in your life. So if I can just take a moment to recognize your courage and your strength and your resilience. I know from my own journey that those of us who are in this world to turn our pain into our purpose, we come with um, a lot in us, our design, our makeup that allows us to make it through the hard parts of our lives. That's been my experience, and certainly that is your experience. Part of God's design for you is to be able to withstand all of that and just make you stronger for the things that you're still experiencing.
Still experiencing.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I do want to, I just do want to say I am, you are very inspiring to me.
Thank you very much for offering that. I always say my life has to be lived out loud because I do not want to misrepresent who God is in my life,
Yes.
right? Overcomer, but that's kind of how He wants you to be. He wants you to be able to overcome some of these obstacles to get you to serve in the purpose that He needs you to serve, right?
And
And
sometimes that comes with a lot of pain. That
yes,
purpose sometimes does come with a lot of
yes,
pain.
the
Yes.
pain is a hell of an activator, isn't it?
It is.
Isn't it?
Yes, it
It will
is.
wake you up, it will
Absolutely.
snatch you up because I don't like how this feels and we've got to do something about it, right?
Mm, so
So,
true. Yes.
yeah, and going into deeper into what led me to where I am today, my beautiful baby, 18 years old, just graduated high school, college bound. She's getting ready to kick off the summer. We just had a graduation, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, yeah, because I'm her biggest cheerleader. Gosh, like this girl, it was my shadow. She was always with me, and it's funny because no matter, she would be the child, like if I jump in my car, she's jumping right in front of me. Mom, where you going? Like, I always say this, I feel so blessed that my kids want to be with me, right? Because some teenagers, especially teenage girls, some of them run from their parents, but Aliyah, she ran to me. She
Yes,
always, and I used to hear her friends talk about, Aaliyah's always talking about you, and I always think that's really sweet because
it is.
she's the love of my life. 3 weeks after her graduation, Aaliyah tells me that she is going to go to a block party, and she ends up going to a block party to visit with some friends that these weren't her core friends, but they're friends nonetheless, people that young people meet on social media all the time, and especially in the
Mhm.
area. So, um, as Aaliyah's getting ready and getting ready to get out the house, she's got her makeup done and her hair is done, and she's, how young girls are, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Make it all cute and beautiful.
Yes, yes. So it's so interesting because before she left, I could hear her come through the front door because her keys are all loud. She's got all this stuff on her keychain, and something pulls me to her, right? So I don't know why I felt this strong urge to meet her in the hallway. And so when I came out in the hallway, she just kind of tilted her head. She's like, "What's wrong, Mom?" I don't know. I just said, nothing's wrong. I'm just so happy to see you. And so we gave each other a hug. This was minutes before she leaves the house. So we give each other a hug in the hallway, and I don't know why I was just so pulled to her.
You do know why.
Yeah, I do know why.
You
I
do know
do know
why.
why.
It's a
I
gift from
do
God.
know why.
Yeah.
And at the time, I just was like, this is a regular day, but it was odd that I even went to go greet her that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
But she was always so good at that. She was good at just out of nowhere, just watching her mom and say, "Mom, do you need a hug?" And
Hmm.
she always, and I repeat those words in my head,
Mm-hmm.
"Mom, do you need a hug?" And I'm like,
Yes,
"Yes, baby, I need a hug."
yes, yes.
So,
Mm.
um, before she leaves, there's something that she's got to do. She's got to do it. So she stops in the hallway by her parents' bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and she says to me, and I have to say this part too. So my youngest son is 10 years old, and he's doing what 10-year-olds always do. Like he's on my shoulders and he's playing around. And Aaliyah stops at my doorway to say, "Mom, I'm leaving. I love you and I'll see you later." And the minute she says this, Jaden jumps on my back. and he's like this on my back, and I'm like, Jaden, and I flung him back, and I'm like, what are you doing? Aaliyah's trying to say bye to me. This, and I was so shocked by my reaction. Jaden's like,
Oh.
oh, and he's like, and I don't know why I reacted to him like that either,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, she leaves the house, and we get a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning, a little after one, and they tell us that Aliyah was shot. And I hear my husband scream
Mm.
at the top of his lungs because I'm asleep. I'm asleep, okay? And it turns out someone was calling us from her cell phone because I had two missed calls from Aliyah. But they ended up getting my husband because he's always on, his phone is on, his ringer's on. All I hear all I hear is him scream at the top of his lungs, no! And I'm like, what is it? And he's like, Aaliyah was shot. And I'm telling you right now, Beth, that was the most foreign thing that I've ever heard. It had to be in a completely
Cannot
different
imagine.
language because
Mm. Mm-hmm.
what are you talking about? Aaliyah was shot. No,
Like, what does it even mean, right?
somebody must be lying, right? They must be because it can't be Aaliyah.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Ma, they're calling me from her phone. This is her number is on her name as a contact is on his phone, and there's a person on the end of the line saying that my baby was shot. And immediately while he's freaking out, I'm already getting dressed. Alex, come on, we gotta hurry up, we gotta get there, we gotta get there. So they're telling us the address to get to where she is. And I this was the longest 15-minute drive that I've ever had in my life. I was driving. I got off the highway, and I tell you right now, I ran every light. I'm beeping my horn, slow down. I ran every stop sign. I have got to get to my baby,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know the details at all about what happened at this party. All I know,
You just know she's been shot. That's it at this point. That's
yeah,
all you
and,
have.
and I'm thinking if she was shot, it'll be okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Leg, arm, right?
people, you see this all the time. Like, what is happening here? So, um, uh, no doubt about it, I'm freaking out, and this person on my Bluetooth through the phone, through the car, is saying words that I cannot comprehend at all. But my husband is talking to this person, and I didn't know if it was a man or a woman. The only thing I kept screaming at this person is, why won't you tell me she's okay? Why won't you tell me she's okay? And I'm zooming there, trying to get there. So when I get on the scene, there is a sea of ambulances, and am I frozen? There's a sea of ambulances, and I've never seen so many ambulances. And I work at a hospital, but the EMT who was loading someone on the back of his truck was telling me everybody is at Harbor Hospital. Go to Harbor Hospital. So we jump in my car again. I dodge over to Harbor Hospital, and it is total chaos.
Yes. Yeah, I can
I
imagine.
see, people outside crying and people hurt and people bleeding and people all over the place. And my husband is at the front desk and he's saying, Aliyah, she's got to be here, Aliyah Gonzalez. And the woman is saying, sir, she's not here. And I'm screaming, she's got to be here because they said she's going to be here. Maybe you didn't register her yet. She's got to be here. And so the person on the other end of the phone calls my husband again and he's like, well, she's not here. And the person is saying, she's still here, sir. She's laying on the floor. So, Beth, the whole time, and I noticed afterwards, I didn't notice then,
Yeah.
the whole time what that person was saying, the words that they were saying is that she's laying here, she's dead, I'm sorry, she didn't make
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
I could not hear that. All I kept saying was, would you just tell me that
Mm.
she is okay? Right?
Yes.
That's the only
'Cause
thing I wanted to know
that's
is
what
that
you
she's
wanted to
okay.
hear. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
She's still there. So I jump back in the car. Now my husband's driving, and we get back on the scene, and absolutely nothing is stopping me from reaching her. And I'm literally burrowing through police tape, police officers, and I just something told me to just turn to my left, and I see a sheet. I see a leg hanging out of the sheet, and I see people standing over this, and I immediately dart over there, and I just let out this voice that I've never heard before leave my body, because I felt like I left my body as well, because I knew this was Aliyah. First of all, I could see her foot, I knew her shoe, but she would have called me a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the police were grabbing me, ma'am, you don't want to see her like this. And I'm screaming at them, you don't know, I need her. I need her so much. I need my baby. And they would not let me get to her because she is considered, excuse me,
It's okay.
she's now considered a crime scene. A crime scene.
Ugh, wow.
So,
Wow. It's a human being.
yeah, that's
Your
my
daughter.
baby. That's my
Yes.
baby. And
Ugh,
I fix all of her boo-boos. So it's not just me, it's my husband, right? So we watch our baby come into this world together, and we are standing there screaming, hopeless, hopeless. There's nothing that we can do. And in my head, a mom's head, I'm thinking, she's not dead. She is waiting for me to come because she doesn't know you, and why are you touching her, right?
yes.
I
Yes.
know she doesn't know you. She's just waiting for me. Please let me get to her. And I'm a logical person. I know what I see. But a mother just cannot see and accept that. And I say this all the time, as respectful and as obedient as Aliyah was, she just would not, could not get up for me. And I remember standing there. I said, God, you've got to show me what this is for, because I don't understand this. I don't understand this. I've been through so much. I don't understand how this is Aliyah. She is the most gentle soul that anybody could meet. She was so sweet. The random strangers would come to her to stop her in the stores and talk to her, and animals were attracted to her,
Mm.
babies. Or
Just
she was just
a
so,
magnetism, it
yes,
sounds like.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember us being in a restaurant, and gosh, I should have had my tissues with me.
I might have to go get mine too.
I don't know where they are.
Do you need to
And
pause?
mm, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. Whew. So
You
I
still look
remember
beautiful.
us eating. Thank you. And I remember a young girl, she had to be no more than 12 months old. We were sitting in a restaurant, and this girl climbs out of her dad's lap and walks all the way across the restaurant and starts to climb up in Aaliyah's lap. And I remember she had to be like 16 at the time. And I remember saying, see, Leah, babies know, babies. And she was just such a warm energy. You
A
know,
light.
she was safe. Yes,
Yes.
she was a light.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I found out later that several people who attended this block party would say to me, Miss Crystal, I saw her there, and she didn't look like she needed to be there. She just
Interesting.
there was so many people that recognized who she was, because she kind of always had this aura about her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't tell, this is her here behind me.
Yes. I
This was
see
her
her there.
birthday. I think she was 15 there. That was her birthday. Yeah, completely changed everything about who I thought I was,
Yeah.
because I could not understand how I was supposed to live without her. You know,
Yeah.
that was a really hard point in life where I said, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" Because
Yeah.
nobody tells you what to do when you lose your baby,
No.
and especially through violence. You know,
Mm.
you never want your baby hurt, but someone taking it upon themselves to injure your child is like that element of violence is adds a whole other layer to the pain that you experience after you lose
Yeah. I
a
mean,
child.
not
You
just
know?
injuring your child, but
Right.
taking your child. I mean, in a
Yeah,
senseless act of violence,
that's right.
which makes it even harder.
That's
I am. your courage to be able to get that out and tell that story is, I
it's
said it already, I'll say it again. You are inspiring to me. Can feel not what you're feeling, but I can feel the empathy for the pain that you're carrying inside of you.
it never goes away. It never
No,
leaves. I will tell that story in detail, exactly how it is for the rest of my life because it's burned into me. And when we talk about PTSD, absolutely, I played that night over and over and over throughout any time of the day it's playing, right? Because it's probably the most horrific thing that any parent would
yes,
ever experience,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and that replay probably will never go away. You just hope to manage the effects of
yeah,
it in your
yeah.
life, which I think you're doing a pretty good job of doing that,
Oh, thank you.
which will come around
Yeah,
and talk about that. So, but thank you very much for sharing that and for your courage to share it. And I also, when I think about you, we're talking about something that didn't even happen 3 years ago. You're already in this place where healing. I think it goes back to what you talked about before, the foundation for healing that you already had because you'd already been through so much in your life, which I know to be true about the healing journey when we take it, when you do the really hard part of your healing journey, it's sort of setting you up to have the tools on board to deal with whatever comes in the future in your life. I just don't know that even when I think about it, and I know that to be true, I don't think about um, the depth of the pain and the trauma that you went through experiencing the loss of Aliyah, despite everything that you'd been through and overcome
God.
before and healed from.
Nothing
And
compared to
yeah,
this.
that can,
Nothing compared to this. And I have lost, excuse me, I've lost family members, I've lost friends, I've lost, people close to me. Nothing compares. No,
yeah,
and I love them deeply, right?
yeah, of course.
But she was a part of me. She
Mm,
was,
yeah,
my everything.
mm,
Now I'm supposed to figure out how to live and
mm,
move, and I still have living children that I need to be here for. And that's, I
yeah,
don't want to get too ahead of myself, but yeah, there were some decisions that had to be made, some really hard things that I needed to face because as bad as this was, the really unfortunate truth of it all is while I was walking through our grocery store because I had to still do my grocery shopping and I run across items that I know she loves.
mm,
And from one aisle to the next, now I'm in a puddle of tears, right? So while I'm doing that, other people around me, they're doing their regular grocery shopping and their lives are going on. And I've got this heaviness around me that nobody really knows about, but it's tearing me up inside. So what am I going to do? I
yeah,
can't live like this.
yeah. And that's the reality, right? Life goes on.
Yeah.
You have to keep moving forward. So tell me about the days and weeks after the shooting and her loss, about the resilience and pulling that on to turn around to say I have to keep moving forward and then finding your way to heal again. So tell me what that was like, those days and weeks
Yeah.
after.
So there were several things that I didn't know I was doing that I was doing that was helping me to understand. Number one was, again, I had no direction. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't know I was going. I would walk. I would walk for miles and miles and miles, and I would talk to God and I would talk to Aliyah, and I would just try to get some kind of, I was getting a lot of things that I wanted to say out, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because at home, everybody's looking to me for answers that I don't have. So I needed that time. That was a spiritual practice. Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I just
Yeah.
needed my space to clear my head because I did there was a atomic bomb that was just thrown on me and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in all of these shards and I need to pick them back up. One of the things I started to think about while I was walking is that I looked down at the ground one day and I said, you know what, Crystal? The dirt. I mean, I was literally looking for answers anywhere. I was so
Sure,
desperate,
of
so
course.
desperate. I
Hmm.
said, Krystal, the dirt, look at this. But you are one of millions and billions of people who have walked this earth, right? So we know death is a thing. We don't talk about it often. As a matter of fact, we think it's only other people who die.
Hmm.
And I always say that because when it hits home, then everybody is like total
Shock.
devastation. But we
Yes.
know, if we're honest, that death is a
Coming
sure
for all of us.
promise, a sure
Yes.
promise,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if this happens to be our appointed space in this time, right?
Hmm.
So I had to grab that
Hmm.
death is a thing, you know.
Hmm.
But then I started to think, wow, Krystal, you are one of many mothers who have lost their children. I really had to go there. Throughout history, what did they do? And if you know, the most popular one that we know of all is Mary. You know, she lost her son. What did they do? So I really had to try to find identity in what my reality, right? So I
Hmm.
thought about not just me, but culturally, I started to think about the slave trade. I had to, because my ancestors were brought here and they lost their children during the slave. What did those mothers do? And then I started to think about the civil rights movement and our babies being hung from trees. I really went there, Beth. I really went there because I could now identify with the pain of a mother who has lost a child, right?
Hmm.
So I was pulling from these areas just so I can build myself back up. And then I even went to, this is the biggest one that got me out of my head and out of my trance and over. So I thought about our ancestors. I thought about the mothers who came before me, but then I went to the animal species. And I remembered a couple years before Aliyah passed away, my husband and I were on vacation. And we happened to be watching a Discovery Channel or Nat Geo, one of the two. We're big nerds, so um, we love it. So there was a scene where there was a lioness and she had three cubs. And if you know anything about the animal kingdom, whenever a lion wants to mate with the lioness, oftentimes he will kill off the offspring of another lion, right? So here comes this rogue lion. And the lioness, the cubs are playing and things like that. And the lioness is nearby. But the rogue lion comes over and attacks the cubs. And so you see this lioness find like she's fighting this lion off ferociously. I mean, she is going at him. She's bleeding, there's blood coming. She lost a tooth during this fight. She's trying to protect her cubs, right? The lioness ends up overpowering the lion and he starts to retreat,
Yes.
but the damage was already done,
Yeah.
and one of the cubs had succumbed to his injuries. And so you see the two surviving cubs come over to their sibling and they're kind of like nudging him, trying to get him up.
Yes.
And the mother comes over, so the lioness comes over and she realizes what happens, and you could almost see a tear coming out of her eyes.
Hmm.
Um, the loss was so palpable in the room that my husband is now sobbing as we're
Oh.
watching this, right? And she lets out this sound, and it's so crazy because I heard that sound because I made that sound.
Yeah.
Um, so she lays down with her deceased cub and the rest of her babies, and she stays there for a little while. But then after a while, she and the surviving cubs have to get up and they have to continue on.
Yes.
And that's where I got the biggest lesson in life. Animals survive on instinct, and their entire world is around survival. And so I said, Krystal, you have got to survive this.
Yeah.
You still have living cubs,
Yes.
right? So that pulled me out of my trance for sure.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I have seen, again, and just following your content and what you're putting out publicly about your journey on social media. And I've seen videos with you and your family, your other kids and your husband. And don't know that it's common for families to stay that close together when a trauma like this happens, right? And in fact, there sometimes a splintering husband and wife may separate, just not being able to withstand and survive the pain.
So
But I
true.
think that's an absolutely beautiful part of your story. And that's what you're talking about, sort of
Yes.
the lioness instinct, the survival instinct and protection of your cubs, but also making sure that you stayed close with your husband. So
Yes.
you've
And I
done that.
try to, thank you. I try to share that um, aspect of our lives as well because it's not talked about. I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
see anything that talked about family surviving tragedy in this way. And I thought that was so important that I share my entire journey because somebody needs that hope. You don't have to, you, first of all, the language is different, right? My husband and I both shared a child, but we shared her differently. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
It
And
does make sense.
when
Yes.
we lost her, we lost parts of, we lost her differently.
Yes.
So just like we are, opposites of each other, we're pretty, we're pretty different. I had to understand that my expression of grief was not the same as his, and vice versa. So there would be times where I would wake up in the middle of the night to the illumination of his phone, and he is deep in the videos and the pictures of Aliyah, and he's just sobbing. And this is 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm waking up, and I'm like, I've never seen my husband so broken in my life. So I knew that I had to offer a support group for fathers who have lost their children too because of him. And we were able to get a Fathers Forever group, is what we call it, that
Oh,
has been birthed out of my husband's pain,
oh, I
but
didn't know that.
also
That's
because I did
wonderful.
not, yeah, because I did not know how to support a father. I can speak to the mothers who've lost their children. I know
Sure.
that language. I
Yeah.
know those thoughts. But for a father, and I tell you right now, Beth, because I facilitate it, and I had told them I want to be completely removed from your group, but that hasn't been done yet. When I tell you I sit in on their group and I try to like mute myself and go away, their language is like nothing I've ever heard, especially from the moms.
Interesting.
It's completely different. And they're
Interesting.
all saying the same things.
Hmm.
And that's when I knew, like, okay, so we've got to open up space for fathers who are hurting,
Mm.
because a lot of the times we are handicapping our men, and I talked about this before too. When a violent crime comes to your door and you are a responsible man, you, as much as you want to avenge or retaliate, or you can't. And so now you're living with these restraints on you because you have to take care of your wife and other children. You have to be a responsible man. So what do you do? And again, as a man, I know we're women talking right now, but as a man, we know that they're a protector, right? We
Yeah.
know that they have that testosterone, that so it's like we're doing so much harm to our men by the crimes
Yeah.
that are being committed.
And I would have to imagine that for men, for your husband, Aaliyah's father, there's probably the idea of being the protector, and that's the role that they have for the family unit. There
Yeah,
must be a significant amount of guilt that goes along with not having protected her.
absolutely.
Which
Absolutely.
it was a total random, senseless act of violence. There's absolutely nothing that he could have done, but I have to imagine that those thoughts
That's
and
it.
feelings are still there.
Still there because,
Mm-hmm.
as he will tell you, he's protected her entire life. This was
Mm-hmm.
the one time that she was out and able to be out, and she lost her life.
Yeah.
It just it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It probably will never make
I
any
don't
sense.
think it's meant to.
No,
I
no,
don't, these
no.
things
This
were
is not.
meant to
This is senseless.
happen. They are, they're
Absolutely.
senseless. Yeah. 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 You know, that talking about the support groups and swimming for yourself, being in a support group, I'm assuming that you've done some work in support group, for yourself, but also helping the men and with your husband. It struck me when you were talking earlier about the early days, when I asked you about the early days and weeks after that, and you were talking about the long walks and actually going through the thought process and the visualization of mothers in history who had lost their children in really heinous and awful ways. It struck me then that you were almost describing, and I started to say it then, it was like you're almost describing that you were gathering your own spiritual support group and being in a place where you could have that shared empathy because you were feeling what they must have felt. But I feel like what you were describing was some pouring back into you to give you strength to keep going as well, which is what support groups do for us,
So
right?
that's very, I'm so glad you brought that up because the other component to that was I was hearing so very clearly, Krystal, you can't be in a grief group. So I did not attend any grief groups because I felt like, for one, they work for people. I'm not going to take away from that. I knew for me, spiritually, as fragile as I was, I'm so empathetic, right? So I am going to absorb all of that energy.
Yes,
And I
yes.
was so fragile that I could not be in a space where here, look at me, we're in pain, and this is my pain, and and I would be up in a puddle on
Mm-hmm.
the ground, not
Mm-hmm.
effective at all.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is what I was actually doing to pour into myself, to restructure myself in a way that I could find some identity in this loss.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me because, again, there's no manual for this. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody's saying how they got through, how they got over. And most people are choosing to suffer. So that's another thing. I remember hearing all the time, you learn to live with the pain. You just learn to live with the pain. And I heard it so much that my daughter, who's right under Aliyah, they're a year apart, we were taking one of those walks and we brought it up and she said, Mom, people say all the time you just learn to live with the pain. She said, I don't want to feel like this forever. I
Mm-hmm.
said, me either, because it
Yeah.
sucks.
It does. It sucks.
It
That
sucks
pain.
so bad. Oh my God,
Yeah.
it was pure hell. So what we have adopted instead was we can learn to live with the loss. So we're able to digest that better. We don't want to learn to live with the pain. The pain is there, but we can learn to adjust and live with the loss. And for us, language is very important to me. I'm very careful about wording that I use because, words have power, right? So, yeah, I always say life with loss, right? Learning to live with loss. So, yeah, I started to pull myself up, and then again, I didn't know any of the details about this party. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I started to hear details about the party that I'm like, oh no, somebody. So we found out a ton of information about security measures that weren't taken. I found out about police officers who were on the scene every year for 26 years, but this particular year, not one showed up to protect these people. Not one
It's like
police
kind of an
officer.
annual event that
Yeah, an
happened
annual event
for a long time.
for a long time, but it wasn't just that they didn't come. They were being called over and over again to come to this place because there are people out here with guns and knives. And the response to some of that was, well, it sounds like we need to redirect that call to the National Guard, or don't go in there. You don't want to become a victim. And as a result, there's so many different agencies that had played a major part in this catastrophe that somebody had to answer for it, And I will tell you, Beth, there were 30 people shot that day.
I was going to ask you if you, because we hadn't talked about that, about how the extent of what actually happened that
Yeah.
night.
This was the
So, yeah,
largest
yeah.
mass shooting in Baltimore's history, and 30 people, 30, were shot that day. Two people passed away. My daughter was dead on the scene, and a young man, he passed away in the hospital to his injuries. The reason why there was so many people shot is because whoever started shooting, whoever else out there had a gun, they started shooting. Now keep in mind, this party has swelled to a crazy number in this small project area. It was about 800 to 1,000 people at some point. And again, I started to see issues with these underfunded, underserved communities. That here's the thing, here we talk about purpose. Aliyah was not a part of the community, right? So, God, why did you lead her here? And it's important that I mention that because when I talk about the number of victims, that means outside of myself that there are 29 other families attached to these victims, and nobody is speaking out about the injustices of that day except for me. So I go back to the things that why have you accepted this as a way of life? Violence has no place in our communities or our schools, but people are using things like bullets have no name or they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that one really crawls my skin
Yes.
because our children are not in the wrong place at the
No.
wrong time. They
No,
are
and
in
in
the right
fact,
place at the
all
right
the
time,
one,
learning,
yes,
growing, and
yes,
becoming. It's
yes,
violence that has
yes.
no place in our
That's
community.
right. But you and I talked about this before,
Yeah,
even with Aaliyah, she was
yeah,
exactly where she was supposed to be in that moment, as painful as it is, but that's also really why she didn't suffer at all.
yeah. That's
You
right.
know, she was just,
She
God
was.
said, time to come home, and it was over.
It was over. It was over, and I a lot of solace in knowing with her injury, she was shot in the head. I hope that's not too um, descriptive, but she was taken quickly. And and I always say she was in her body 1 minute and out of it the next, and she probably didn't even know what happened. And to me, that was a great relief, right? Because oh my God, what just happened? It was that too was important for me to communicate that to my family,
Hmm.
right? Because again, remember I mentioned earlier, people are looking to me for answers that I did not have. And so I was seeking answers. And I knew that my family looks at me to see how to be,
Hmm.
right? So their healing is very much dependent on what they see in mom. And so I can
Which
gladly
I'll just, it's fantastic to be able to do that for them, but what a heavy burden to
it
carry.
is, it is.
Yeah.
But as the manager of our families, we don't get an option as to how to
True.
take this responsibility. So I mean, I tell you, we don't get a say in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when life gets hard, you really have to make some hard decisions, some choices. And I knew through history, you know, just seeing other families, that when tragedy comes, it can wipe a family out. People are
Yes.
turning to drugs and alcoholism. It's repeat violent behavior. Is all of those things based
Hmm.
from one incident that can tear your family apart?
Yes.
And we are so very close to each other. Like I could not see that happen. I would not want to see my family completely destroyed after losing Aaliyah, but we don't lose her. We bring her with us. I tell them that all the
Yes.
time. We
Yeah.
bring her with us
Yeah.
everywhere, you know.
Yes. Yes. Her life has important meaning
Yeah,
through what you all are doing together and the work that you're doing, celebrating her,
absolutely.
celebrating
Absolutely.
her life. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yes, you too can heal, and I'm here to show you how. Download my free healing quick start guide at empoweredsurvivors.com/heal. And congratulations on taking your first step toward transforming your deepest wounds into your greatest strengths. So let's talk about that for a little bit, the advocacy work that has come out of the particular situation that you were just describing about the party that she was at and the police presence, a lack of police presence, and being an underserved community. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm still, I want to say, few weeks after the shooting is when I had, I was still very foggy. I remember
Mhm.
this so clearly because I felt like I was a zombie. You know, those,
Sure.
oh my God,
Understandably. Oh,
I
yeah.
was so
Yeah.
much shock in my body, and people don't
Hmm.
really take into account the amount of
Hmm.
stress that it has physically, mentally, all of the things, right? So I remember looking up one day at the TV, and I'm absentmindedly folding my laundry and things like that, and I see that they're holding a town hall meeting to discuss public safety in Baltimore. And I don't live in Baltimore. I live right outside of Baltimore. And everything in my body said, you have got to be there. So I got there late because, again, I don't live in Baltimore, and the entire place was packed, standing room only, maybe. So when I got there, I know these people don't know me at all. They don't know anything about me. And I'm standing there, but the mayor's up there, the police commissioner is there, all these people, and I gotta talk to y'all, okay? Like, that's all I remember. Aaliyah's not here because of your lack of response. I was fired, Beth. I tell you, no
I
lie.
bet.
I was shaking because
Mm.
again, I was not so much nervous, but I had to get this out. And my first town hall, when I opened my mouth to speak, everybody knew then that I was the mother of the girl who was shot at the Brooklyn home shooting because again, it went all over. It was national, even
Yeah, of course.
global. It was
Yeah, of
all
course.
over.
Yeah.
And now they can connect the mother too. So the other component that I did not mention was that night that I was on the scene, the night that it happened, someone
Mhm.
thought it was a good idea to record me finding my baby that night. And so there's an entire video that went viral on social media. Yeah.
Oh
Talk
no.
about re-traumatizing. So before
Oh.
I could even call my oldest son, who was still in New Jersey at the time,
Oh.
he heard about it, but he said,
Oh
"Mom,
no.
I just knew it was you because I could tell how you walked when you first got on the scene. I can tell that was you." And he saw this video before I could even, yeah. So there's that part, right? We want to be the first to put things out, and you have no care on the impact that it has for the family. So people knew who they made the connection. That's the woman in the video screaming, trying to get to her baby. That's the woman in the video.
And now you become a human being, not
Yes,
just someone in a video that they've
yes,
seen.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And
Mm.
and and from then I just kind of started to like I know who Aaliyah is. I know she knows who I am. She
Mm.
knows there's no way that I would sit under my bed in a ball of tears and I mean, could very well easy done that. But she knows me and she knew that I would advocate for her in life. It wouldn't be any other way. So it came to a point where Leah, who she towered over me at by the time she was 12, she already outgrew me. I'm only 5'3". Aaliyah was 5'8", but she knew even if she had any kind of conflict, she would try to resolve it before she got her mom involved, right? Because she just knew. So that wouldn't change. That would not change. But here's the other thing. When I was the same mother who said, God, I see this on TV. I don't know what I would do. It turns out, Beth, this is what I would do.
Mhm.
So that advocacy started that day when I felt that strong desire. Can nobody speak for my family or Aaliyah but me? That's another part. Accepting the assignment,
Mhm.
accepting that only you can do this.
Yes.
There's
By the
nobody
way,
else.
I can hear God speaking to me right now, saying that to me. Yes,
Yeah,
accept the assignment only you can
yeah.
do. So
Only
true.
you can do
So
it.
true. Yeah.
Only you. And
Only you can
nobody
do
else.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna come and rescue you, and nobody's gonna come save you. This is here's the reason why they can't do it is because they're trying to save themselves.
Mhm.
They got their own stuff to do, right? So from then on I just kept showing up. Didn't know what was going to happen, but I tell you this, no matter where I showed up, the cameras always made sure to find me. So I think about that too. I was always on the news. Aaliyah was always on the news. And I mentioned that there were two people who died that day. The Kylis is his name. He was 20 years old, and Aaliyah. But for some reason, the media just kind of swallowed Aaliyah up or picked her up and just kind of ran with her. And I think about this all the time. I talk about the tale of two mothers all the time who both experience the same thing on the same day, except it's not the experience, but what you do with the experience that makes the difference and how you deal with change. Because
Yeah.
that's what this is, a big
Yeah.
change.
Do you know her?
I know, yes, I'm I am in contact with her. She's going through her journey, but she was before her son passed away. She had her challenges, and this is just, yeah, this has been really, really hard on her. And I'm here to support her as much as I can. Um, but I tell you, this is a hard, hard one. That was her one and only son. And that's another element that I deal with. That there's some mothers who have lost their one and only child, or there's some mothers who have lost multiple children, and there's some mothers who lost multiple children in different ways: drug
Yes.
overdose, gunshot, car accident. And
Mm.
so all of
Suicide.
those things, yeah, all of those things I take into account when I'm, supporting survivor moms. Hmm.
So the advocacy work has got a little bit of a legislative slant to it now with some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was first and foremost for me because I could not believe, and I'm not going to use a derogatory term, but not so intelligent people are sitting in these seats that are determining our laws, that are dictating what our culture looks like, right? And I did not have that
Leaders,
revelation.
so-called leaders.
Right, I did not have that revelation until I was thrown into this space. And I'm like, oh my God, like I cannot believe it. So I found these huge gaps in the system. I mean, huge areas that needed my attention that I was just calling out left and right, left and right. Like the Public Housing Authority, how they say that they didn't know about this party when we know that's not true because you actually had flyers hung up in your office for in recruiting people to help out with this party. Everybody wanted to point the finger at
Of
other
course. Of
agencies.
course.
And
Yes.
then
Mm.
we've definitely, we wanted to know why no police officers responded to this area because it would not be acceptable in any other place in Maryland, but it
Mm.
is acceptable in Baltimore because the way you view the residents of this particular area. And so we were able to get some legislation passed with the Enough Act. I sat down with the governor. We had a few private conferences, and one of the things he said at the last one was, I want you to know, Ms. Gonzalez, this is the Enough Act is because of you bringing light into these underserved communities. And Enough stands for engaging neighborhoods, organizations, unions, governments, and households. So that's all encompassing, right?
I love
Right. So,
that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we want to make sure that no
Yeah.
child, and we think about the poverty level. So there were so many things that came after this and still coming. Just yesterday, I testified for in favor of a gun bill that and it's not, I'm not anti-gun. I tell people all the time, I'm not anti-gun. I am pro-safety. That's
Yes.
huge for
Mhm.
me.
Yes. Me too.
So this gun bill is to have Glock switches are already illegal federally, but it's to help to have the manufacturer change the design of the Glock so that it cannot be converted into an automatic weapon. You pull the trigger once and it fires about 20 rounds in a second. That's a deadly weapon that no civilian on the street should ever be able to operate, right? And so I'm doing everything that I can to ensure that we keep our kids alive, to ensure that we keep our community safe, because the reality is it can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime, right?
No, I mean, it's
And
happening all the
yes,
time.
yes, all the time, yes.
Yeah, I like that pro safety. That's what I am too. Yeah, gun violence is definitely a problem in this country that needs to be
It's
addressed in a
yeah,
different way.
yeah,
Something
absolutely.
actually done about it. So kudos to you for taking some steps to try to move that forward.
I
Um,
have to.
and
I don't
I'm
know.
just sad that it came the way that it did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I say this all the time. That's the unfair trade. Because if God were to have a private conversation with me and say, Krystal, I'm gonna need you to help hundreds of people. I'm gonna need you, but in order to do so, I gotta take Aliyah back with me. I would have been like, hey God, I don't know if I want to do that. I would never sign up for this. I would never say, "Oh, this is what I want you here. Take my child as a sacrifice." This is crazy,
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think about that too when we talk about purpose and being directed. That comes along with the experiences. So none of these experiences are, even though they seem like they can break you, right? They seem like they can destroy you in many ways. But if you understand that this is, I hate to say it the way I'm going to say it, but I have to say it this way, but a promotion and an elevation in your life in a way to get you to where you are supposed to be.
I understand 100% what you're saying. I often say that one of the greatest ironies of my life as the healing mentor is that I had to suffer for 45 years and then be given the opportunity to walk my healing journey to be where I am today. But I don't get to this elevated, promoted space. And which, by the way, I would say also it's, promoting me personally, promoting me and elevating me out of my pain and my suffering. But I don't get to make that ascension and rise out of that without
Can't
having the
skip the
painful
process.
experience. You
You
cannot
cannot
skip the
skip.
process.
You
No, you cannot. No. I hold on to that as well. There's always, that, and you sort of alluded to it earlier when bad things happen to good people, and it's one of those unanswerable questions that maybe someday we'll have answers when we're actually with God. Maybe we'll get to understand why. But in our humanness now, seeing that so much of that, and I experience a lot of this with the people that I come into contact with and talk to, is that it's very clear that there is a path to purpose for a greater good that comes out of the pain. And you are, without a doubt, definitely one of those people. And God made your human design, God made for exactly what you've experienced and what you're doing now. He's given you
Yeah,
everything you needed.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That I think about, we read the Bible, and you can tell I'm a very spiritual person. But when the Apostle Paul says that all things work together for my good, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not talking about all fluffy things, all nice
That's
things, all
so
beautiful things.
true. That's so
He's
true.
often
Does
talking
not say
about
that.
all of the
All.
painful parts,
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah.
things that, because you will never grow in good seasons. You'll never grow in good seasons. You only grow and elevate when your back is against the wall, when you're at rock bottom, when you have a crisis come, because that is the test. And you don't ever, and if you look at anywhere through history, whenever someone was promoted, it was right after crisis, during
Yes.
crisis. That's
Yes.
it. Because
Yes.
you begin to see what your potential can be. I again had no idea that this lived in me.
Me either.
None, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
I think that's true of us, right? Who take this journey, and it goes back to the thing that you just said about the trade. If you knew what was coming, would you ever make that trade? Would you ever say, yes, God, I'm going to take this deal? I mean, I think as humans, naturally the answer is no, which is part of God's plan. I believe that we don't even know what's ahead of us and
Don't
what's
know.
coming because we wouldn't, we wouldn't be able to fully engage in the process, right? And move through it and then use the person that God made us to be to do the work that we're intended to do. Right?
Right. Part of my um, part of the tools that I use to help me on the really hard days is knowing that this two parts. Number one is that God trusted me as a vessel to bring her here, to raise her,
Mm-hmm.
to be
Mm-hmm.
a mother to this very special
Mm-hmm.
energy. Um, Part two would be, you did a great job. You were a good steward over her, but now I need to reclaim her, right? So knowing that I was a good mother to my child and I raised her to the best of my abilities, and she had been so effective while she was here,
Mm-hmm.
that makes me smile from the inside. As painful as the circumstance is, again, that's one of the tools that I use to help me on a really, really hard days.
Yes.
Um, is that I did not mess that up. Didn't mess that up.
Blessing to have that knowledge, those tools on
Yeah.
board to know that, and a blessing to have experienced it. Right?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know what my life would be like. without any of them. One of the things I said to my family is, you know, oh, Mom, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what to do. And you know, my children's pain is a whole other activator for me because my goodness, you know, the reality is she molded us. We
Mm,
molded each other. We helped to shape each other. So when one of those parts or pieces are missing, it's like, well, what do you do? You know, so again, I always say we invite her into every space. Yeah, I testified for the bill yesterday and I invite her right on in. Why? Because she's always with me. You know, I never have to separate from my child. I think about that all the time. I never have to separate from her.
that is true. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Always going to be with you.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
for sure. For sure. So I know I'm going to be watching to see what's ahead of you. 'Cause I have a
Oh,
feeling there's probably really more advocacy related and true, let's make a difference work
yeah.
coming for you in the future. So I don't know any of the details on that, but I'm going to keep watching you.
Yeah, so yeah, I've been all over the country convening and on stages and just really doing the hard but necessary work because there we are in a unique position to begin to help heal. And I always say this when I speak to survivor moms because we have lost something so precious. We have a voice that is so powerful. If more survivor moms understood through
Hmm.
that pain comes power and the way that you help to raise another generation. Most of my work with my nonprofit, Redirecting Our Culture, is we are a survivor led organization and we um, focus heavily on survivors because here's a scenario that I use all the time. My now 12-year-old son, who was just 10 at the time his sister was shot and killed. Well, what does that look like for 10-year-old Jaden, 10, 15 years down the line? Is it
Hmm.
introducing drug and alcoholism? Is it introducing repeat violent behavior because of trauma that had not been dealt with? So if we're not getting a hold of those survivors right away and showing them,
Hmm.
hey, you know, there's another side to life after death. There's another side to life after the crisis so that they are not falling into the cracks of this repeated cycle, right?
Become
Of
another
violence
victim,
and
right?
hate. And it
Yeah.
happens so often with families, and
Hmm.
that's why we're redirecting our culture because we need to redirect our culture from the very things that are killing us, and that
Yeah.
is the repeat cycle of violence over and over again. Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Redirect our culture. I like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed having you here today, and I could keep talking to you for a
Oh,
while. Yeah, maybe we'll have another conversation in the future as I keep following you and seeing the great
we
things that
will.
you're
You
going
have
to
to
be
do.
doing. Yeah, I would love to. But before we part ways, would you like to provide any details about where listeners can connect with you? And I will put those into the show notes, but anything specific that you want to put out there for them?
Sure, sure. So, you can follow me on any of my social media handles. On Instagram, you'll find me at Inspire Me Cree. You'll find me at Inspire Me Cree also on TikTok. My website is redirectingourculture.org, or you can find me on krystalgonzalez.com. So there are several ways that you can connect with me. I always lend my survivor's voice. There's a series that I do on Instagram called Survivor's Voice because we were finding that there was a lot of people who are suffering and feel like there's no one here to listen to them. So you'll see the headline, the media can cover what they can cover, but a day later, you're out of the news, the news cycle comes on. So the survivor's voice offers a safe space for survivors to sound off, to talk to their legislators indirectly through our Instagram live. So if you ever feel like that is a space that you would like to join us on the Instagram live, you can follow me there on Inspire Me Cree. And yeah, I'd love to have you on. Thank you so much, Beth. This was wonderful.
Yes, it was wonderful. I'm delighted to see you again, and I've enjoyed our time together. And thank you so much for being very vulnerable and authentic, true, and sharing your story. And I'll say it one last time. You inspire me, Krystal.
Thank you.
You
I
do.
appreciate you so very much. This is great.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah. Thank you all for listening to today's episode. And as I always say to you, keep healing. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Let's Heal with Beth Jones. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Beth Jones Healing Mentor. And if you'd like to know more about me and my work to help other survivors to heal, please visit me on the web at empoweredsurvivors.com.